routers. A little weak in terms of China. I think overall they actually beat numbers. I think Apple is one that this sort of marks the bottom that we believe we'll see for the year in Apple.
Dan, let's go there. Spend a little bit more time on Apple. The stock is down about 10% year to date, which is really unusual for that name here. Give us what the concerns are specifically about phone sales in China.
Look, and let's go through numbers too. Look, China has been soft clearly the last few quarters in terms of what we've seen with the headwinds there in the market. But when it comes to the AI release, Apple Intelligence, that we believe that's actually not going to get released till April. Baidu, Tencent, ByteDance likely going to be the partner. Is it a little softer? It's about 2 to 3% softer in China. So just to put numbers around it, Street was anticipating 225 million units for the year. We believe right now it's tracking about 230 million, 5 million ahead. Mm-hmm. The best case was 240 million. So maybe that's off the table. Paul and Tom, I think this is as way overdone sell-off as I've seen on Apple in a number of years.
With any worries of Apple, is the cash-generating machine broken?
Free cash flow is going to increase 12 to 15% the next 2 to 3 years.
So what happens? What happens at the end of the month? At 4:22 p.m., when we go, OMG, China was light, but cash flow's up how much, Dan?
I believe cash flows probably beats 3 to 5%, and free cash flow for the year will be up 12 to 15%, which is why I believe this marks the bottom. I believe Apple is a stock that's
okay, so, good morning, Mr. Buffet. Mr. Buffet likes to listen when Dan Ives is on. Are you telling Warren Buffett at Berkshire to buy more Apple?
Oh, I think it's a table pounder because it's my view. You talk about Apple being light in the quarter, but they're going to announce an Apple Intelligent partner in the next few months. And then you ultimately are going to have 25% of the world's population. When they access AI, it's going to go through an Apple device. So my view is just, it's one, that's how so many have missed the last $2.5 trillion in market cap in Apple. They focus on the bears coming out, they own the narrative, they scare white knuckles, and then Cook and Cupertino come through and you're like, and that continues to be the mantra here. This is a name you own. You don't sell Apple, you own it.
Dan Ives declared publicly that if recent market fluctuations are anything to go by, we might be witnessing a pivotal shift. Nvidia is mounting a challenge like never before against Apple. While both companies are currently the most valuable on the global financial stage, Nvidia's recent strides in AI technology are only pushing it further to dethrone Apple as the most valuable company in the US. But why is this a possibility? Let's unravel this intriguing scenario. Welcome back to Investocracy.
Spreadsheets. And look, we're doing the work. What we see across the Asia supply chain, I mean, we're seeing strength not just into December, what I believe is going to be ultimately a record year for Apple, 240 million iPhone units. And that's why, look, this is going to be an AI-driven supercycle that's multi-year. And that's why, look, the haters, they hate it at 2 trillion. Despise it at 3 trillion. At 4 trillion, going to be yelling from top of the mountains.
You write in your note that you estimate roughly 300 million iPhones globally have not upgraded in over 4 years. So do you think this upgrade cycle is going to be led out of necessity because people are just desperate for a new phone? Or is it that AI capability that Apple's starting to introduce?
I think about 60-70% of it is that you've gotten to the point now where that's a pent-up upgrade cycle. It's really unprecedented for Apple. But also remember that install base, that's increased 200 million even over the last few years. So the install base continues to be the golden goose of Cupertino. But the AI-driven piece, it's just starting. That's why it's a get out the popcorn moment, because in our opinion, the consumer AI revolution goes through Cupertino. And I think, look, that's why the bears will talk about valuation like they have for years in Apple. It's about some of the parts, about what AI adds to the story. We think it's $30 to $40 per share.
How hard would it be, though, for the next upgrade cycle, especially if so much is driven now by software updates? The hardware hasn't really changed.
Well, I think that's in iPhone 17. Again, that will be, what we'll be seeing later this year, into 2025. That's actually going to be a hardware-driven, a new form factor that's really going to be AI-driven. So that's why this is almost, it's a 1-2 punch. It's 16 into 17. And that's why what makes this unique, it's about the increased services. And ultimately, you have hundreds of apps right now in development that are going to be on top of Apple Intelligence. And that's why the enterprise AI revolutions, the godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia. The consumer AI revolution goes through Cupertino. And I think that's why we could see $4 trillion potentially, today or Monday.
One potential difficult spot, or is a difficult spot, is China. Mm-hmm. How are you thinking about China, especially with the fact that Apple needs to partner with a local company to introduce all of this?
Sure. Look, Cook, 10% politician, 90% CEO, right? And no one understands.
He might actually have to be more of a diplomat in 2025 than 10%.
And maybe 30%, 70%. But the point is, look, it's what him and Musk have had to navigate in terms of success in China. But what I love about the cycle, that probably gets announced from the Chinese partner early in 2025. It gets rolled out in April. So the China upgrade cycle in terms of AI coming to China, that's when that happens in April. And this is just the beginning of a multi-year AI cycle that plays out from Apple.
Nvidia has solidified its stand in the tech realm as a leader in GPUs crafted for AI and data center supremacy, a sector in continuous ferment. Its stock recently soared by an astonishing 131.5% over the past year. This was fueled by the relentless demand for AI technologies, which seem to transform everything from data processing to game design. On the other side of this economic duel stands Apple, obviously known for sleek smartphones and the harmonious digital ecosystems cherished by millions worldwide. However, recent headwinds, particularly in China, are casting shadows on its robust performance. Apple's latest iPhone models stumble in the Chinese market as domestic regulatory demands thwart the inclusion of Apple Intelligence. Meanwhile, domestically, the specter of antitrust allegations looms ominously, accusing Apple of monopolistic practices in the smartphone sector. But before going on with the video, are you into cryptocurrency? If so, check out our second channel, Investocracy Crypto. We bring you breaking news, expert analysis, and the latest trends in the fast-moving world of digital assets. Whether you're a seasoned crypto investor or just curious about the future of finance, we've got something for you. Click the link in the description to subscribe to Investocracy Crypto now. Don't miss out and stay ahead of the game. Now, let's get back to the video.
Our next guest was at that event, the CES in Las Vegas, and he describes it more like a rock concert than a tech CEO speech. Dan Ives is Wedbush Securities analyst, of course, joins us now. Has a buy on Nvidia, price target's 200. Good morning, Dan. Let's talk robotics and autonomous technology. You say in your talking points or your review of the speech, that alone represents another $1 trillion of incremental market opportunity that Nvidia can now tap into over the coming years. How do you get to that number, and how do you derive the value you are for Nvidia from it?
Yeah, I mean, look, to me, I think Jensen laid out the strategic vision for the coming years. When we look at robotics, autonomous, I mean, I believe ultimately those are going to be some of the biggest use cases of AI. And I think what you saw from NVIDIA last night is they're not just sort of going to be a provider. They're going to play a huge role in this sort of vision. And obviously, Tesla on the autonomous side continues to be front and center. I think this is the next step. I think this is a snapshot of the future. And you look at it incrementally, you go out the next few years, I think Street's underestimating growth by 25, 30%, which is why I think not just $4 trillion, you could be looking at a $5 trillion market cap.
Underestimating growth by 30%. So what is it? Is it robotics? What's being underestimated, so to speak, in terms of the growth for this company?
I think one, it's Blackwell, just overall from a demand perspective. We think 15-to-1 demand to supply in terms of what we see. I think when you look at robotics and autonomous, given the market opportunity, that could ultimately be 15-20% of what I view as disruptive technology. I mean, that could be an incremental 20-25% just to the top line over the next, call it 2-3 years. I think that to me was the sort of watershed moment last night. It's Jensen laying out NVIDIA. It's not just about Blackwell chips, the new oil gold. It's about where this is all going. And we believe autonomous and robotics, that's a huge part of the fourth industrial revolution.
Now, if numbers could speak a compelling narrative of their own, Nvidia's financial prowess would narrate a more vigorous tale. With a staggering revenue leap of 94% year over year, reaching an impressive $35.1 billion in the last reported quarter, Nvidia's financial vigor is palpable. Contrast this with Apple's modest 6% rise in revenue that caps at $94.9 billion, and it's clear Nvidia's momentum is currently outpacing that of Apple. It's these data-backed trends, coupled with market enthusiasm for AI investments, that form Nvidia's strategic advantage. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
So what does a ChatGPT moment in robotics look like then, Dan? What does that mean?
I think physical AI. I mean, we've talked about from Robotaxi Day in October. I think we're going to be looking next 2-3 years. Robotics is not just going to be from CES, it's going to be real. And I think it's something that's going to play out in factories, it's going to play out in consumers and households. And I think a year from now, we start to go more advanced prototypes to something that's going to become a reality. And I think that's the key here is that we are still in the early days of the AI revolution. And there's only really one player. I mean, it's Nvidia's world. Everyone else is paying rent. That was a flex the muscles moment from The Godfather last night.
What about what I was just talking about, Dan, which is higher yields and the fact that all those stocks are down today? I know you're excited about the fundamentals and the innovation here, but does it make you question valuations when we are seeing a rate move like this on some of those ideas?
Yeah. No, look, and that's the push and pull, and I get it. But my view, Sarah, is that we have $2 trillion of AI capex next 3 years. And even when you look at tech, look at Microsoft just going to 80, from 44, basically doubling their capex. You look at numbers, you could say valuation, but I think it goes back to, I think earnings and ultimately top line growth for tech is being massively underestimated into the next year or two. And that's where the growth is. This revolution is not going to be stopped in a 10, 20-bit move on the 10-year.
Supported by an upward trend in AI demand and pioneering tech innovations, Nvidia appears positioned to not only eclipse Apple's market value briefly, but potentially hold on to that spot through the year, and maybe even beyond. The anticipation is real and the stakes immense. So, where does your opinion land on this riveting tussle? Will Nvidia indeed ascend as the world's most priceless company? Or can Apple counter with innovation and reclaim the crown? Share your thoughts. Finally, if you would like to know what companies like Nvidia have been up to these past few days, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.